Durham City Council certainly has new energy this year, now that the majority of members are serving their first 6 months in office. While their backgrounds are varied and some of their motivations and goals are different, they all have at least one thing in common: to make Durham a better place for everyone. Welcome to CityLife. I'm Beverly Thompson. In the first of our two-part series, we sat down with council members Javiera Caballero and Mark Anthony Middleton. This time we're talking with council members DeDreana Freeman and Vernetta Alston. We'll begin with Councilmember Alston. Councilmember Alston, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. How busy you are.
Absolutely, Beverly. Thanks for having me.
So through your work as an attorney, you've been an advocate and an activist for so many who are disenfranchised in Durham. So what is the biggest difference between what your role was in the community and what it is now as a council member?
Sure. Thanks for the question. A couple of differences. First is who I serve. So as an attorney, as you know, I represented folks who have been sentenced to death here in the state of North Carolina. And I worked really hard to tell their stories in hopes of helping spare their lives. And as a member of council, I represent everyone in Durham to make sure that folks' basic needs are met and to give voice to people who aren't often heard. And so those are two of the biggest differences. And there are many others, but what I think is the same between my previous job and my current role on council is my commitment to folks who have been disenfranchised, and my commitment to progress, and my commitment to the people of Durham and the state of North Carolina.
Has anything about your role been different or surprising to you as a council member?
I tell people all the time that the biggest surprise in this job has been the email, the volume of email. I think we're all used to getting a lot of email in our work, but the volume here is pretty great. But that said, oftentimes it's people who are writing in to say, I'm concerned about this issue, or there's a pothole in my street and I'd really like it fixed. And so they're engaging. They're engaging with us. They're engaging with the city. And so it's a great privilege of mine to be able to respond and to serve their needs. So.
That's awesome. Very meaningful roles, both of them are.
Right, absolutely.
So what do you see as the three biggest challenges facing Durham right now?
Sure. There are never just one or two or three. We have a unique and very diverse population here in Durham, and I think the needs of folks here reflect that diversity. That said, I'll mention a few. I think first, and I think central to our role on council, is to meet the basic needs of everyone in our city. In particular, around matters like safety and shelter. More than 30% of residents of Durham can't afford where they live. More than 800 people every month are evicted from their homes. And far too many of our residents experience homelessness every year. And so I think we can address those issues by encouraging growth and encouraging density in our housing. In order to house people, we have to have places for them to live. I think that we have to continue to support the work of our city, as well as our public and private partners, to bring sustainable, affordable options for folks at every income level when it comes to housing. And also, I think as a city, we have to do everything that we can to try to help curb our eviction crisis, because that's what it is. It's a crisis that we have to address immediately. Second, I think on a policy side, we have to invest in policies that allow everyone in our city to benefit from our growth and from our prosperity. And that's a theme that I think you hear, amongst my colleagues and amongst, folks, here in the city. And I'm grateful that we have that shared vision. So I think we have to create real, viable incentives to grow our minority business community so that we can serve populations in the city that have been historically disenfranchised, and in particular our justice-involved residents. Hundreds of people or residents come back to Durham from incarceration every year. And across the state, something like 60% of folks who are released from prison are unemployed 1 year after their release. And we have to do our part as a city to help reduce that statistic. And I think, there are folks here in the city, including our I team, who are doing great work to help reduce barriers to employment. And there are also members of staff who are working really hard to create real and good employment opportunities for folks who are reentering our city. And I support those goals wholeheartedly, both because of my previous work, but also simply because you know, these are folks who are valuable to our community.
Right.
And I think our policy decisions have to reflect that. Finally, and kind of looking at this from a bird's eye view, I think we as a city have to decide what our identity is going to be like, both now and into the future. I think something like 20 people move to Durham every week, which is great. We're growing and it's really exciting. And I think it gives us a wonderful opportunity to kind of look at our capacity to grow and change in really positive ways, but also to kind of capture the aspects of our history and our culture that make Durham such a special place.
Right.
So I think we can do that together.
And you mentioned growth, and I think it's a word sometimes is like being a Republican or Democrat. It kind of divides people. How can we grow in a way where everybody benefits?
That's a great question. I think we're doing it. I think it's going to take. I think the way that we do that is that we have that everyone who is a stakeholder in our growth, you know, that's, you know, from every single one of our residents to, you know, our institutional partners, you know, to city government, to county government, you know, our stakeholders at the state level. We all have to be invested in the shared goal of growing in a way that allows all of our residents to prosper and to thrive. And I think I think all the little pieces that are involved in that are vast. But I think ultimately we have to have a shared vision.
So what is it about the work that you do with council, as a group even? What do you want our viewers to know and what they can expect from you?
I'd say what I want our viewers to know, or your viewers to know. I won't claim for this to be my show. Is that we are a diverse council, and we work together, and I think that those things together help us make better decisions. And so I think people can expect us to be an accessible and very, very hardworking group of people that want Durham to be, again, a place where people can grow and thrive. And live together now and into the future.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this then.
Sure.
When you're talking about Durham, what do you brag about?
Sure. I brag about our spirit. You know, I think Durham is a place where people care deeply about each other, and people care deeply about this city. And I think what's unique is that you never find one without the other. Right. And I think that's what makes Durham really special. And so, you know, it's my hope, you know, as someone who was born here, who cares about Durham very deeply, is to hold on to that.
Do you think it's going to be difficult to do with the growth that's happening and everything?
Beverly, I'm an optimist, so I think we can do it. I think folks who live here and who come here to live here and work here want that, and so I think it's just a matter of being a voice for that, you know, in my role on council.
So I know you have a beautiful family, beautiful little girl. Do you have any hobbies outside of taking care of your wonderful baby?
Well, yes, you're right. My main hobby is spending time with my daughter and my wife, and I feel very lucky to have them in my life. One of my newer hobbies, and I'm a little embarrassed to say this, is I've taken up racquetball. Oh, really? And I'm sure your viewers are familiar with racquetball, but you play it in a closed room with a little racket, and you hit the ball in order to score points. And it's really fun. It's a great workout, and I'm grateful that I can contain my embarrassment at not being very good at racquetball within four walls. So, so yeah, it's been fun.
So what made you decide to pick racquetball?
I'm getting older. I realized I needed to take up sports that were kind of consistent with my the aging process. It's a fun sport that I feel like I can do kind of going into the future. And so I'm working hard at it. And like I said, it's a great workout. So,
Good. So I know we said we wanted people to get to know you and to get to know what your platform, your views are. Is there anything you think we haven't addressed that you wanted to talk about?
Sure. Well, just quickly, I'll mention, you know, what I think are our challenges around safety, public safety. I think it's important to appreciate that, you know, crime is down in Durham, you know, virtually across most categories. That's a great thing. But, you know, there are still challenges that we face. You know, there are too many people in Durham who are sitting in jail simply because they cannot afford bail. Too many residents in our immigrant communities do not feel safe. They don't feel safe in their homes. They don't feel safe in their cars. They don't feel safe at work. And that's unacceptable to me. And there's a gap still, I think, in trust between our residents and our law enforcement officials that we have to address. And there are a lot of ways that I think that we can tackle those issues. But I think first we have to support the work of our department and our chief of police, and also continue to expect a high level of accountability from our department and the culture of policing in the city so that everyone feels safe.
Is that something we can put a timeline on, or is it something that we're just going to have to work on as a community?
I think you put it well. I think it's something we just have to work on as a community and have to be committed to.
Well, we're so glad you're on council, and we look forward to continuing to work with you. And thank you for joining me today.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
So when we come back, we'll be joined by Council Member DeDreana Freeman, and we'll talk about her views on City Council.
I'm about to see poop, aren't I?
You're gonna see some good stuff.
You and I have very different definitions of good stuff.
Join Durham City resident and comedian Deb Aronin as she goes to the South Durham Water Reclamation Facility to work as a plant mechanic for the day in the series premiere of Durham Works, now streaming on the City of Durham's Facebook and YouTube accounts and airing on the Durham Television Network.
Welcome back to City Life. We're continuing our conversations with Durham's newest City Council members. Joining me now is Council Member DeDreana Freeman. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So, let me ask you, you're currently working at East Durham Children's Initiative, meaningful work with a wonderful population of kids. You work with a number of other nonprofits in the community toward creating more equality in Durham. So what is the biggest difference between what your role in the community has been and what it is now as a council member?
Wow, thank you for the question. I would have to say the biggest difference is I'm now a policymaker and I'm fiscally responsible for the taxpayers' money. And so the challenges are different, but I think it's more of what I've been doing and how I've been working in the community, and so it's just intensified quite a bit.
Is it something you've always wanted to do?
It is something I've always wanted to do.
That's
I think coming alongside of policymakers has been something I've always wanted to do. Being the policymaker may not have always been it, but I think in time it's kind of growing on me. So.
Good, good. A lot more meetings, huh?
just a bit.
Just a bit. So let me ask you then, what do you see as the three biggest challenges facing Durham now as a policymaker?
Oh boy, I would say the three biggest challenges are institutional and systematic racism, actually having income stagnation with rising housing costs, and I'll have to think about the third one. Probably issues around transportation, making sure that it's equitably available for more folks than less.
So how do you work to resolve those kinds of challenges? They're very broad and huge and long-term, some of them.
They are. I would say that the first two have been ones I've been working on for quite a bit of time, and since I've been in office, it's been helpful to attend those different meetings that I have and incorporate a little bit of what I've been doing in the community. And so I know working with the Durham Housing Authority, it's been helpful to have the equitable economic development conversations and figuring out ways to make sure that our newest developments around around downtown include affordable housing and actually focus on affordable housing that's sustainable and access for folks who are below 60, even 30%, even low and no income folks who will be included in the conversation around housing.
I know you were on the Planning Commission, and you were there for how many years?
4 years.
4 years. So are you using any of that knowledge and skill set on council now?
Definitely. I mean, most of the cases are around planning and zoning, and a huge part of having the last 4 years to get to know the community is building the relationships with folks who work around planning and zoning. And so in the community, the developers, the realtors, the property owners, and also within staff, you know, knowing who the key point people are is very helpful.
That's good. I want to ask you too then, you must really enjoy just being in the community and being of service. So what is it you enjoy most about that?
Oh boy. It's hard to say. I enjoy finding solutions to difficult problems. I enjoy being able to have conversations about things that people really are passionate and care about. And from that, I just take life and kind of move forward with it.
Is there anybody you talk to in particular, or any like neighborhood, I guess, confidants who you reach out to help provide guidance and help you make decisions?
I think it's different in different arenas, but definitely there are plenty of folks in the community who provide guidance and who I look to for more information. If it's something I'm unaware of or something I'm unfamiliar with, and even if I am familiar, just to get a kind of balanced opinion on issues. And there are plenty of folks who have, I know this morning I had a conversation with some of the Durham Realtors Association folks, and it's just helpful to have access to the people who are kind of focused on this 110%. So it's helpful.
So what are the biggest challenges you think facing council right now?
Boy, I'm not sure I would be able to say what it is right now. I know that in the coming years, it's going to be really how to make what we've been talking about actually come to life. And so I'm cautiously optimistic that we'll get there, but it's going to take a lot more than just the city council to do this. So.
A lot of partnerships in the community are needed, huh?
Yes.
To achieve those big challenges that we have. So let me go a little bit on the other side now and talk about your feelings about Durham. I mean, Durham's a great community, and I know you know that, having been here for so long. But when you travel, and you do travel a lot, right?
Yes.
In your job, what do you brag about when you talk about Durham?
There's so much to brag about.
Yeah.
I think I brag the most about how Durham is the culture capital of the Triangle, and I mean, people choose to live here more than anywhere else, and I'm excited that I'm a part of Durham's leadership and really look into how we can broaden that culture capital and create more access and shared prosperity for everyone. So.
Great. And I know you have a beautiful family, and how can you have any hobbies? But I'm going to ask you, what? You have 3 kids, right?
I do.
Yeah. What are their ages?
Actually, I have twins that are 8. They'll be 9 next month, and a 12-year-old.
Wow, keep you pretty busy.
They do.
So I'm scripted here, so I have to ask you, what are your hobbies outside of that?
I would say my hobbies probably include a lot of games and kind of like hanging out with the kids, but also it's about like traveling, meeting new people, and I'm having trouble with that.
That's okay.
I think for the most part, I love to read, and so I'm always trying to find answers to solutions, and I'm reading a lot more than I usually do, but I enjoy it.
So that's fun for you, huh?
Yes, it is.
Okay, all right, that's good. And you still work at East Durham Children's Initiative at the same time?
I do, and I think because I have a joy for the work at East Durham Children's Initiative, it's important to support families and children around their academic needs, and that in and of itself is a huge part of my hobbies. It's sad, but that's kind of.
But it's so meaningful.
Yes, it
really is. It must be rewarding. Is there anything you'd like to share with our viewers that I haven't asked you about?
Yes, thank you. I would love to have more conversations around race and equity, and really think about some of the disparities that face people of color in the city, and try to come up with solutions that actually address those disparities. So, in health and housing and education and transportation, it's important that we start with the conversations and planning and then move forward with implementation.
Councilmember Freeman, thank you so much for joining me. I hope we can have you back soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that does it for City Life. Don't forget to like us on social media, watch us on Durham Television Network and on YouTube, and listen to our podcast on iTunes. I'm Beverly Thompson. Thank you for joining me to learn more about City Life in Durham.